Hi again, everyone. Timothy Dunn here. Want to jump right into law number 4 of the 48 Laws of Power by Mr. Robert Greene. And this is interesting because it really applies to me. Let's see if it resonates with you as well. Law number 4 talks about always say less than necessary. And if anybody has known me for any period of time, I'm probably one of the most verbose people that you'll ever meet. So this is a constant battle. Now, what it says is when you're trying to impress people with words, the more you say, the more common you appear, and the less in control you are. Even if you are saying something banal, I love that word banal, it would seem original if you made it vague, open-ended, and sphinx-like. Powerful people impress and intimidate by saying less. The more you say, the more likely you are to say something foolish. Well, this is something that I've tried to learn a long time, and I am Irish, and not that it matters, but I have had the honor of going to Ireland and going to the Blarney Castle and walking up the steps and laying down and scooching out over the edge and kissing the stone. I guess that pretty much only made it worse based on my heritage, but it's something we're talking about, the laws of power and how we can gain power in a corporate environment or in our own personal lives, and some of the things that we're doing to relinquish that power to people that practice these things. So I definitely want to make sure that we at least adhere to it and take the best of these intentions and bring it to ourselves. So a few examples that they talked about in the chapter here is that there was a Roman general that was really good doing battle. And nobody knew anything about him, but that he was in the battlefield and he just kicked butt and everything was doing great. Well, as he got older, he came to Rome and he wanted to get into politics. The problem there is that once they put him up on a podium, the guy would never shut up. So what happened there is the people of Rome, not only did they not vote him into parliament, but they ran him out of Rome completely because he had said some things that were very disparaging. Now, he thought he was just being a commanding general. Well, you know what? When you're dealing with people, especially when you're in a corporate environment, everybody doesn't necessarily have to do what you say. So you've got to be very careful to watch what you say, and if you can't do that, the best thing is to not say a whole lot of anything. There's a saying in here by Leonardo da Vinci in this chapter. It talks about oysters and that how they open their mouths normally when the moon is full. And what happens is crabs, they throw in a little stone or they throw in some seaweed so the oyster can't close its mouth. And Leonardo da Vinci said, that's what happens when people talk too much. Eventually, you become the prey of your audience because you're revealing too much of yourself, or you're becoming too weak, or you're becoming too common. So that even if you had the greatest message in the world to say, it's being lost because you're using too many words. In this chapter, it talks about Louis XIV and how he was a much different person as a child than he was as a king. Because as a child, what he would do is he would go into the marketplace and he would tell stories and jokes, and everybody thought he was more of a court jester, not somebody that was of noble blood. But as a king, he was very, very quiet. And so what happened over time is his court would become afraid of him because they didn't know what he was going to say, didn't know what kind of mood he was going to be in. So they always tiptoed around him. And he was one of the most influential kings of his time simply because he kept everybody at bay by not saying a whole lot. And he's the one that actually coined the phrase, "we shall see." Because when they came up with something that needed to be done, they would go to the king and they would elect two people. One would make an argument for, one would make an argument against, and the king wouldn't say anything. He would basically just dismiss everyone and say, "we shall see." There was no consultation with anybody, and nobody knew what he was going to do until it was actually enacted into law, until they saw a big piece of parchment stapled to a tree. They didn't know what his thoughts were, and this is how he maintained power and control, and this is why he was one of the most feared kings of his time. Now, as it relates to us gaining power corporately or in social environments, the less that we say is actually going to work in our advantage because it's going to make other people feel uncomfortable. if we don't reveal our true intentions and we only say the minimal amount, especially in discussions of opinion, what's going to happen is those that don't have control of themselves are going to start talking, and they are going to actually reveal what their true intentions are, and this is them giving you their power. Andy Warhol learned this because he actually went on TV several times saying, you know, I can't get anybody to do anything I tell them to do, but I've learned that I get more done just by shutting up. So in the latter years of his life, he would be very cryptic and almost very weird in his interviews, and the commentators and everybody around him would have to explain his actions and his lack of cognitive speech. And what happened is his fame just went through the roof. Now, whether this is part of his dementia or whether it was part of his divine plan in becoming popular, you know, who knows? But it absolutely worked when he curtailed his speech. There's also an example in this chapter that talks about a Chinese emperor, and he was consulted by a philosopher and said, never start moving your mouth until the subordinates do. If you're in a room, especially at a cocktail party, or you're in a boardroom, or something's a little bit relaxed, if you remain silent, somebody's going to start the conversation. And the more that they talk, the more that they're going to reveal their intentions. So, I'm going to take some of my own advice, and I'm going to try to reduce the verbosity, and I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye, and hopefully you've enjoyed this. Please make sure to stay tuned for Law Number 5. Thank you again for going on this journey with me. We'll talk to everyone soon.